I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
a confident young man, a superb athlete,
Gary Seegers.
Welcome in. Winning Cures Everything. It is the Week 9 reaction show, Sunday, October 29th. And the guy that is on the right side of your screen is not Matt Huey this time. That's right. We're not talking injuries today. It's going to be Parker Fleming. You know him from the BetUS show. You know him from Never Punt, Never Parlay. You know him from Twitter at Stats of War. Parker, how are things, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. It's weird to be on this side of you. Normally on the BetUS show, we're flip-flopped here. This is a whole new world.
I'm normally left side of the screen. Today, you're the right side, and it works for me. You were on the right side more often than anybody on our show yesterday. The Big 12 bets, the Conference USA bets, that's your wheelhouse. Well, I think we figured that out at the start of this season.
It's nice to know that, and I wish I had just gone with that. Go back in time and only pick those games. But yeah, man, it was a good week yesterday, and had I think 2-1 on Never Punt, Never Parlay. So hell, 6-3, you can't complain about that on a weekend of plays.
No, you got that right. I started out 2-0 and finished at 2-4 on the BetUS show. Just a complete and utter disaster. But you know what?
Well, that's like me with you and I both kind of been on these midweek games pretty well this season, and you're like, all right, hell yeah, 2-0 on the midweek games, and then Saturday comes and it just ruins your life.
It's such a disaster. It's like I felt good early, hit that first early game, and then Mississippi State couldn't do anything against Auburn, and Eastern Michigan couldn't do anything. Here's the crazy thing is the games that I picked were just flat wrong. Like the ones that I lost, it's not like I had to sweat something out, right? It was just, hey, this thing's dead from the jump. No issues. Like Oregon State, I kind of had to sweat last night. But that felt like a game that could go either way anyway. So It is what it is. It is what it is. Let me tell everybody where they can find us. Of course, the BetUS College Football Show, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure and get subscribed to that. You'll find us 2 times a week. And then, of course, there's a bunch of different clips and whatnot that go out, but make sure you are subscribed to that channel. We would appreciate it. The link is in the description for that. You can support the show by I think you can become a member on YouTube, on the Winning Cures Everything YouTube, or on the BetUS YouTube, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/winningcures. That's an easy way to do it. I post up my full season stats projections or score projections for the games over there every week. So check that out. If you want to see my plays every week, Telegram, you can go on your phone, t.me/GaryWCE. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok at GaryWCE. I'm on Twitter at Winning Cures. And if you're watching this show, you probably already know that. Parker, where all can they find you other than what I told them earlier?
Yeah, man, Twitter's the spot. I got stuff all over places. That's kind of the best place. I'm still I'm posting previews and stuff there every week on Tuesday mornings. Tomorrow morning we'll come out with I'll be out there with Did We Really Get Beat That Bad, which is the graphic that's driving the most traffic and the most controversy this year, the net success rate. So I'll post most of that stuff on Twitter. You can find me there.
Success rate is so much fun. It's so much fun. Let's dive into the different topics that we're going to hit today. Now that we're already 3.5 minutes in, whatever. We'll start off with what we usually do on the show, and that's the weekly Heisman. So the weekly MVP, who was the most ridiculous stats guy of the weekend. And look, I've gone with Ollie Gordon II multiple times this year. He was ridiculous again, so I don't want to use him. I'm going to go with the guy that lost a game yesterday. I'm going to go with Chandler Rogers from North Texas, who was absolutely absurd. 32 out of 49 passing, 411 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 picks, and lost the game. Like that's what happens when you don't have a defense. The fact that Memphis was able to come back and win that game is just absurd. But that North Texas offense has completely shifted since they went to Chandler Rogers. Of course, the Louisiana Monroe transfer. That was a bananas ball game, man. What do you think about that one? And who's your guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I liked with Chandler Rogers. He had 51 attempts, but only 1 even turnover-worthy play, let alone no interceptions. So, I mean, an average depth of target of 11.7. This wasn't like dink and dunk. The dude was throwing it. I wish you could see this on my notes because literally I have Ollie Gordon and then Chandler Rogers right here as 2 of my 3. So I'm going to read off a couple stats for both of them. I'll call them honorable mentions, and I'll give you my real one. Ollie Gordon, 271 yards yesterday, 8 runs, 10 plus yards, 4.76 yards of after contact. Gary, in the last 5 games, which is kind of his full workload, he really didn't play the first 3 games for Oklahoma State. Ollie Gordon has 978 total yards. That's 195.6 a game. He's got 8 touchdowns. He's got 28 runs of 10 plus yards. Dude, he's a dude. He's a dude. And so, just absolutely impressive.
How did he not know in the first 3 games of the year that this is the dude? Like how do you?
I don't know. I have no idea what they were thinking with just kind of the slow start. I mean, I think there might be an argument to say like, hey, Mike Gundy only cares about the Big 12, and so it was just like, hey, we're going to figure out what we can do in the offseason. Man, it's just absolutely absurd. I've tweeted it. It's one of the 2 that I continually retweet now and then. Is 2023 is going to be Mike Gundy's funniest 9-3 of all time. Because they lost to an Iowa State team they should have beat. They lost to a South Alabama team that was really good, but it shouldn't have looked that ugly at least. So, but yeah, Gordon's absolutely great. The other note I had on Rodgers, 11.1% of his passes were dropped yesterday. He had 411 yards, and they left so much on the table even. That was absolutely absurd from him. My pick for Heisman then, if those 2 guys are off the table, which sure they are, I'm going to shout out Josh Cephas at UTSA, filling a really, really big hole for them. Wide receiver, obviously, with Franklin gone to Ole Miss, they really were missing a secondary option, and I wasn't sure if Cephas was going to be able to hold up. Love it. Absolutely love it.
That was
and yeah, I mean, he had 24.1% of targets for UTSA, but he had 46 of their yards, had a touchdown, 15.4 average depth of target, so getting the ball downfield. And lest you think that his numbers are just skewed by that 180-something yard touchdown play that he had 4.82 yards per route run. Again, the baseline there is like 3 is, hey, you're pretty good. So that is God-level performance out of Cephas from the wide receiver position. Love to see it. Gary, UTSA getting hot down the stretch, man. They let the birds get hot here.
They're back. They're looking all right. That team, so they were dealing with some injuries at middle of the year, right? Obviously, Frank Harris injury, but they had some other dudes out on defense, etc. It looks like everything is clicking again. And that last game of the regular season where they play against Tulane, that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be good. It's Tulane again yesterday, 27-7 lead, 30-27 final. Just ridiculous. They just cannot put teams away for whatever reason.
Tulane is Tulane's like playing senior spring or something, man. They're just kind of chilling. I don't get it. I mean, they're good, but I really think it comes down to lost a couple disruptors on defense, but like especially with Ty gone on offense, it really doesn't feel like they have like the punch on offense. It's like, hey, we've got guys, we're going to make plays, but it's not like, oh, this dude's going to put it away. So it is interesting to see. It's not necessarily regression from Tulane. It's just like, hey, you don't have a superstar, around Michael Pratt now, and so that's kind of changing things a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. We'll move ahead. Mm-hmm. We'll go to the CFP top 4. And so basically, what we've done is what would be your top 4 in the playoff right now if the season were to end today. However, we are getting into November, and this thing is almost done. The regular season has 4 weeks left, and man, we have got gargantuan matchups every single week from now until the end of the regular season. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our top 4 now and kind of give a projection of where we think it finishes, because obviously we're going to talk Oklahoma and Kansas. We're going to talk some other things that happened yesterday here in just a bit, but that was a huge spot. I'll start us off here. My number 1 is still Michigan. I've had Michigan number 1 for several weeks now. Do you agree with this? Is Michigan our number 1 team?
It's hard not to have them there. I think there's a little bit of game theory because I kind of played this as like, what do I think might happen and projecting it out. But right now, it's really hard to not have an argument of Michigan being decisively in the top 4, if not number 1. I mean, one of the most absurd performances in a season, even accounting for schedule. I mean, they're just absolutely dominating people. It looks like they're playing an FCS game every week. They are absurd.
Yes, agreed. What about number 2? Who do you have in at number 2?
Okay, here's where I went a little bit of resume and a little bit of prognostication. I'm going to put Florida State at that number 2 spot. I think the Seminoles have played maybe better than their. They're undefeated, but better than their record just in the sense of like they've had a little bit of close games here. But you're looking at their schedule and looking at who they've played and looking at how they've played. I think there's a lot of argument here that their resume is going to be pretty stacked. That LSU win, aging better and better. That decisive victory over Duke. They'll get a chance to really, again, kind of head-to-head with playing Florida here in a couple weeks. They take care of Pitt and Miami. I mean, they're cruising the ACC championship. They'll probably get a top 15 team in Louisville there, maybe another one to kind of have the resume there. So I think Florida State is the number 2 here.
So I bumped Georgia back up to number 2 for right now. I saw a lot in that Florida game that I liked. Without Bowers, they seemed to click. It's like they didn't have the crutch, so they didn't try to force it. That was very interesting to me that they and not to say that Florida is, some great team, but if you can come out and dominate the way that you are supposed to, especially going into this stretch, right? Because they've got Florida, they got Missouri, they got Ole Miss, they got Tennessee. They got quite a few, and then they'll finish out with Georgia Tech, who is a formidable opponent. Georgia right now, not great resume thus far, but the Florida game really kind of swung things for me. I had Florida State down at 4, and some of that might just be, I watched Clemson get beat again yesterday, and I'd started going through the resume for Florida State, and I said, okay, like LSU, that's a really good win. But LSU also has 2 losses because they also lost to Ole Miss. So, where is like the right? And we saw the early in September, but since then it's just been the Virginia Tech win that looked kind of before. Now it looks a whole lot better. Wake Forest yesterday, but that one could end up looking really good. I've got Florida State in there, but I have them at number 4. My number 3 here, I've got Ohio State at number 3 right now. So I think that wins matter. I've said this every single week, and that's why I had propped up Florida State so much. But like Ohio State's got to win over Penn State and over Notre Dame. And yeah, the offense is flawed, but this seems like I could certainly see us having both Michigan and Ohio State in the playoff again. I mean, we saw them do it last year. If the season were to end right now, I certainly think both of those. I mean, they're both undefeated right now. I think they could both get in there. But who did you have in at number 3?
Yeah, so season end, I have Ohio State 3, and then I have Georgia at 4. If the season ended right now, it's the same top 4. I think just out of principle, I'm like, you know what, Georgia, the schedule hasn't been great. It really hasn't, and like that's not necessarily their fault. But you look at who they've played, and you're like, okay. I mean, this isn't a murderer's row. And I know they had Oklahoma scheduled in the SEC, and they changed it and all that stuff. So like maybe this could have been a little beefier. I'm not trying to penalize them for that. But like out of principle, I'm just not as theoretically impressed. Also, all of my numbers that are kind of like, how did you play against who you played? Georgia's, decisively in that second tier behind some of the rest of these guys here. So avoiding the rematch, you put Ohio State ahead of Georgia as well, kind of get us there. So we get Michigan, Georgia, and Florida State, Ohio State in that in that initial matchup as well.
And so I had Washington at 5 and Oregon at 6, just on the outside.
Oregon at 5 for me.
So for me, like I know, Washington has not played well like since the Oregon game. And honestly, you could say that they didn't really play all that well in the Oregon game, but they somehow found a way to win the ball game, right? My projected Final Four is I'm going to have Ohio State at 1. I think they beat Michigan at the end of the year. I'm going to have Georgia at 2, which might be bonkers, but when you look at the strength of schedule and all that stuff, I think they could bump them down. I'm going to have Florida State at 3 and Oregon at 4, because I think if Michigan takes a loss, I don't think there is any way that the CFP committee is going to put them in because of all the crap that's going on around the program right now, right?
Yes.
So
I think I agree with that.
So if they're out, if they take a loss, I think they're out. Oregon, I think, is going to win the Pac-12, and I think they're going to win going away. They get Oregon State at home to end the year. That normally would be one that I'm like, but they also got to play USC. I think they can handle that. Like I don't foresee issues there. Florida State, I think, is going to win the ACC going away. I don't see anybody that's able to keep up with them there. And then Georgia and Ohio State, Georgia seems like they are rearing into form, right? I think that this team is fired up. It's going to be basically a carbon copy of the first CFP playoff in 2014, except that you swap out Alabama for Georgia. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
I like that. I actually got a little ambitious here, and I think this might be me betting with my heart. Speaking of tweets that I keep retweeting that just won't go away, I had Ohio State 1, Florida State 2, Alabama 3, Oregon 4. I think that I just can't count out Saban. You can't count him out. It's like the meme a couple years ago about you can't count out touchdown Tom. Kind of the same thing here with Nick Saban. There, it's just you just can't count him out, man. I can absolutely see a world where if that offense becomes if it's better than a nod at offense, if Alabama just does better than a passing nod at offense, I think they could beat Georgia pretty handily. Not big margin, but I'm just saying they could take it.
Yeah, they could beat them. I believe that they could beat them. They've got the talent to do it. They make some of the dumbest mistakes, and it doesn't get better week after week, right? It's just mind blowing. And
I think about that scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall where Paul Rudd is the surf instructor and he's yelling at Jason Segel. He's like, "Do less." No, okay, now you're doing nothing. No, don't do too much. That's got to be Tommy Reese and Jalen Milroe every Saturday.
Oh, I watched this team get a false start on a victory formation. I don't even know how that's possible. And it wasn't like somebody that was on the line. It was a running back. So that's either on the running back or it's on the quarterback for not getting everybody set before he snaps the ball. It's mind blowing. So let's see. Josh jumped in. He said they got to beat LSU first. Well, that is obvious. Obvious they got to beat LSU first. But LSU's good. LSU's good. We'll see if that that defense for LSU has shown up because, man, I was impressed with what LSU did against Army. But when I watched Army only put up 14 on UMass yesterday, I said, well, okay, maybe this isn't improvement. Maybe they just played a really bad Army team. That is yikes. Let's you ready to get to the games?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into some of these.
Let's pull them up. Here, let me swap over the design thing here. And there we go. That way everybody can see it. Kansas, 38. Oklahoma 33. We'll kind of deep dive 5 games this week, and then we'll rapid fire through some of the conference stuff. This one shocked me, absolutely shocked me. When this thing got down to 8.5, I went ahead and bet Oklahoma earlier in the week. Right? I'd say earlier, probably Wednesday. I guess it was that it got down to 8.5. That Texas game for Kansas never left my brain. I could not see this result. And I guess I didn't consider the injuries that Oklahoma had as being super serious, right? Because they've got a couple of guys out on defense, whatever. But I don't think it was that. I think there were just mistakes, right? So Oklahoma, 3 turnovers led to 12 Kansas points. You start to look at some of these stats, 11 penalties for 101 yards, 2 out of 10 on third down. I mean, against that Kansas defense, that is terrible. Terrible. What was your takeaway in this one? Because it felt like Oklahoma was going to win basically the entire game, and they just couldn't get it across the finish. They were always allowing Kansas back into this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot about hey, we had middle linebacker out, or the weather was really bad, or whatever. And it's kind of man, I don't know. Are you one injury away from losing a game at Kansas that you very obviously should have won? I mean, Dylan Gabriel had 5 passes more than 10 yards downfield. 5 passes all game. They couldn't, and most of those came up the last that last drive where he threw 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
This was really hard. I think there was 2 things in this game that really kind of stuck with me in terms of keep this in the back of my mind when we're thinking about how predictive this is going forward. I have ESPN up and it blares in the background. Oh, I hate that. Oof. It just randomly pops up. You guys notice that? You're like, hey, it's got the stats up. Leave me alone.
Yep.
2 things stood out. One, Lance Leipold tried to lose that game. Oh, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
They scored there at the end, and we're not situationally aware. They should have just gone down and kicked field goal. should have just gone down and gave the ball back to Dylan Gabriel with that defense. And I mean, dang it, you almost paid for it. So really, really rough there for them. Same along the lines in terms of coaching. That first play on that last drive, Oklahoma let like 4 seconds run off before they called that timeout. I mean, at that point, that's a tenth of the game. That's a whole nother play. That's another shot at the end zone they would have had. And so it's just bad coaching on both sides in spots there. The other thing that stood out, I mean, Kansas immediately scored on 2 turnovers, which is really, really good. I hate the personal foul on Jason on the Jason being hit at the goal line. And look, it's very true that Kansas might have lined up and gone for it on 4th down and scored. Right? Absolutely. You can't be like, oh, they wouldn't have scored at all. Whatever. Can't change the entire line of things and just pick one thing out of it. But a quarterback trying to enter the end zone is fair game. Like, and he can't just drop down and give himself up and get, because like, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to let him score. The goal line is different. The quarterback does not have a free entry into the goal line. You can't slide and give yourself up and score a touchdown. That's asinine on its face. Not to mention, dude went shoulder. So like, even targeting, I don't think. Situationally should not have been a call. You can't give yourself up as you're crossing the goal line or trying to cross the goal line. And 2, I don't even think it was good targeting. So that was a pretty big one that I think was annoying to me, just in the sense of it did have a big swing. It gave them the downs. They scored in the next play. Maybe they would have anyway. I don't know. But I mean, Oklahoma had every opportunity to win this game, man. And really, if you are in a situation where one injury to a linebacker or a little bit of rain and a little bit of cold makes you look this bad. That's really, really rough.
And it's why I didn't give the play out on BetUS, right? Because I felt good about it, but at the same time, you're going on the road. You got Bedlam next week. We saw him not look great against UCF. Like, is this still part of the hangover, or is this just, hey, they were really wanting revenge against Texas, and now whatever happens after this is just, it's just icing, right? I don't know that they ever really thought that they were CFP contenders, but they certainly talked like it after the Texas game. I don't know. It was a very strange. It was a weird game, very weird game. LFG jumped in and said, "Please, God, let Oklahoma State knock off Oklahoma in 23 Bedlam."
That would be fun. That would be fun. I think it would be hilarious.
I think it would be fun.
I've muted most of the people that would annoy me about that. So, I mean, I feel like that's pretty, it's okay there. But, it does seem like, Gary, from like a predictive sense, though, talking about the 2 things that are annoying, Oklahoma can get off script and not really get back on. Like, they can be deterred. And Kansas just played very annoying. Dylan Gabriel threw some mistakes. There, obviously, but man, really, really rough. Yeah.
Hasn't Lebby always kind of been like that? I mean, he's great at scripting drives, and then once you get into the muck of it, it's. I mean, he did the same thing at Ole Miss. He did the same thing at UCF. It's, they look really, really great, and then if something gets them off schedule, you get a false start, and it puts you behind the chains a little bit. All of a sudden, everything's wiped out. Yep. So
and I want to say, like, oh, they had a talent advantage at UCF, and then Ole Miss, Kiffin was taking the keys at one point. But, like, you have a talent advantage in Oklahoma. It's Kansas. Like, what are you against?
Yes.
I mean, even that defensive line for Kansas, like the worst unit in the Big 12. And still, I mean, they ran the ball kind of well, but they just couldn't. I mean, they couldn't even do enough there. So, rough.
You see so this is game on paper. The defensive run stuff rate for both of these, the 0th percentile for
no stops to be had. Let me pull up contact. Yeah. I want to see. So the yards after contact is probably absurd for both of these teams.
Let's see, do we have it?
I've got it here. I have Oklahoma had 126 of their 270 yards came after contact. That's 2.52. And then 3.51 for Kansas. So that's 137 of their 225. So Oklahoma actually was getting that's a testament to how bad Kansas defense is. Oklahoma was getting a lot of yards before contact, before they came in, before they were even getting hit there, and still really couldn't do much with the game. That's crazy to have such a good rushing performance and really not be able to do anything with it.
Yes, I agree. 100%. I mean, that game was bonkers. just absolutely bonkers. We won't spend as much time on these other games, but let's go ahead and hop into these because these were we think the most interesting from the weekend that was. So let's go on and move to NC State and Clemson. And Clemson now has 4 losses in the ACC and overall before they get to North Carolina, before they get to Notre Dame. And again, it was just a myriad of issues, right? I mean, 2 turnovers that led directly to 13 points. Here, we'll pull it up on the screen. And MJ Morris was not great by any stretch of the imagination. He was 11 of 20 passing for 138 yards. You had the one long run from Kevin Concepcion, who I talked about early in the season, but never really did anything. I mean, they had Zach adjusted rushing yards for NC State was 86. This team had 202 total yards, and they beat Clemson. And what do you do if you're Clemson right now? Like if you're Dabo, how do you even like they threw the ball 50 times in this game for only 263 yards. What was your thoughts on this one, man?
Yeah, this is the one where you start to say, and I was kind of a long believer of, I think Clemson's demise has been overrated. Like last year, they were basically 2 plays from the playoff, but this is not a team that's interested in building the top talent to win a game where you're off. Frankly, they rely way too much on the quarterback to bail them out, and that's a good proposition when you have Trevor Lawrence back there, but not as good proposition when you've got Cade Klubnik or DJU. Yeah,
it's
just a really
Klubnik is just a dude, right? Because like he was super highly rated. He came in and just looked like gangbusters immediately when he got on campus, and he's just not good for what I mean. How about this? It's not that he's not good; he's not great, and they're so used to great. And I think we all kind of assumed that he was going to be. You and I both had a flyer on him for a Heisman this year, didn't we?
Yep, because he was going to have plenty of moments, and they should have been better. And I mean, it's not even like, oh, they're frustrated and there's some things to do. It's like, hey, you legitimately don't have the wide receivers who can make this happen with this quarterback. So like, I don't know what they're going to do. Where's the quarterback coming from? I don't think they're going to. There's nothing coming from the pipeline there, and from wide receiver standpoint, I mean, just not a lot of dudes there.
And that's the thing is that you don't have to have a great quarterback. I mean, NC State won this game with MJ Morris. Like he was 11 of 20 for 138 yards. He did have 2 passing touchdowns, but like this is the dude that, I mean, only scored 3 points against Duke a couple of weeks ago. Like it, I mean, we're not talking like some crazy, you just, got out talented by some other quarterback. Like they should have been able to win this game. They outgained them by 160 yards. And yet, they didn't outrush them by that much. It was 101-64 in that regard. But 3 out of 3 in the red zone is promising. I mean, that's better than they've been.
Yep. That's well, and if you look at their box, I mean, they had a long play of 41 and then a long rush of 41 and then 2 28-yard rushes, and then that's basically their explosive plays there. And that's, I mean, with the Riley offense, and I know it's not necessarily totally his offense, but that's you need the explosive plays there.
We can do a success rate and all that good stuff. Yeah. I mean, still better success. I mean, 20% success rate for NC State. How do you win a ball game where you've got 20% success rate?
Well, and what's crazy is their turnovers. So they again missed field goal at the end of the half, but that interception. I mean, NC State started on their own 40. That wasn't like a red zone automatic, and then they threw the pick six as well. So I mean, one of those they just the decisive touchdown in the game wasn't a gift. It was, hey, we just screwed up, and then our defense couldn't get the stop there. So. Not excellent effort from Clemson there, and never a good thing. I think if your tight end is your leading receiver in a Garrett Riley offense, like that's not what you want.
That is
shout out to Dave Doran coming after Steve Smith saying it's not a basketball school. Kiss my ass. I love that, man. That's some great. That's some Hayden. Yeah, I love that.
That was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It's always a good time when you get Dave Doran talking. By the way, they are 5-3. Like we wrote that team off. That team is 5-3. Now they got 2 losses in the ACC, so I don't know, but I don't know what they're going to do as far as the ACC race. But they might get. I bet the over 6.5 this year, thinking that they would figure it out with Brennan Armstrong. Maybe they just figured out just however they got to do it. MJ Morris and the other team making mistakes. That they've got a rough schedule ahead. But yes, that's a fun team to pay attention to going forward.
Yeah.
Right quick, let me do a Ticket Smarter thing here. These games cost a bunch of money. If you want to go to concerts, my wife and I were looking at Tyler Childers tickets again for 2024. It's like $200 a ticket to get in anywhere you want to go. Why not take advantage of the deal we got at TicketSmarter? TicketSmarter.com or the TicketSmarter mobile app. Check it out. Use the promo code WCE10. You'll get $10 off an order of $100 or more, or WCE20 is going to get you $20 off an order of $300 or more. And this is not a one-time thing. You can use this promo code anytime you need to order tickets. Just toss in that code, WCE10, WCE20, and you are going to save some money. So think smarter, Ticket Smarter. Visit ticketsmarter.com. Parker, let's move ahead. We have got another one that I'm ready to hit on, and we're going to talk some Pac-12. So we need to just go ahead and get to the Pac-12. USC 50 and Cal 49. And USC survived again, and somehow Cal outgained USC in this ball game. And we knew what it was going to be. We knew that it was going to be Jaden Ott just going crazy. 21 carries, 153 yards for him, 3 touchdowns. But the kid that came in, the third stringer to start the season, that is now the starter, Fernando Mendoza, 25 out of 39 passing, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. USC put up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and found a way to win the ball game. Got a stop on that 2-point conversion when they needed it. And now, as bad as they have been, this team is still, 5-1 in the ACC right now? Or not ACC, excuse me, in the Pac-12 right now. They're still a bit. They got Washington this week. Washington hadn't looked like gangbusters here in a few weeks. Did we write them off too soon?
I think it's always the temptation, especially because, I don't know, a lot of my circles are Big 12 centric. And so a lot of people want to, pile on Lincoln Riley as soon as possible. But they do kind of control, at least have a path. Control is probably too big of a word there. In the Pac-12 there, they're going to play every contender here. Washington, Oregon, UCLA. Like a New Year's Six Bowl is absolutely still on the table. The Pac-12 championship still on the table. And for them to salvage that with this defense and with these vibes would be absolutely impressive. I went on VSiN with Tim Murray this week and was talking to him about this game because he's like, I think I want Cal, and I kind of was like, yeah, I've got him within 5. Like again, the numbers were right, trust the number, whatever. And I was kind of like, the Utah game didn't happen last week. Like maybe I would be all over Cal because I feel like that's like the Justin Wilcox special. But this one was, I did not have this one going 50-49. That was yesterday. My first thought was legitimately, who the hell is Francisco Mendoza? Like, who is this guy? But Jaden Ott, I thought was interesting. He's a really big yards after contact guy because Cal is very bad at getting yards before contact. But yesterday, he had 4.43 yards after contact against USC. That's actually not as big as it seems because he had a 61-yard run and only 93 total yards after contact. So, of course, you adjust for that one. You're like, on a per play basis, was actually getting a lot more before contact against this USC defense. That's a really big problem for playing somebody like Oregon, who like UCLA, who's going to just try to run over you and really push you a little bit there. So that was really what I was looking for more was I expected USC to survive, but I was looking at, is Jaden Ott kind of driving this by creating after the contact yards, or is USC giving up these kind of pre-contact yards in a way that is indicative of perhaps, again, the Oregon and UCLA being able to do something against them?
Oh, they'll just get blown off the line of scrimmage, you would imagine. But the other side of it is, again, this offense, as much as the body language and everything has looked off with this team, they just continue to find ways to put up points and put up yards. I mean, 6.2 yards per play. They had 80 total plays. Cal, 81 plays and 6.5 yards per play. But, 16 yards per completion, like 497 total yards. Caleb Williams did his thing, 23 out of 40, 369 with 2 touchdowns. Marshawn Lloyd, the South Carolina transfer, came in, 17 carries for 115 yards. Like, they just find ways to score. And I don't know. Oregon, I think they're going to have issues scoring on. Washington, potentially, but I think that one's going to be bonkers. I think Washington's going to score. It's so long as Penix is healthy, because I don't think that he's healthy right now. But this. I just wonder if, USC hit that midseason lull, and now, they might make some noise. They might make some noise. So they got
their mid-semester report card, and their parents chewed them out and took away their Xbox, and I think they might be getting their life together a little bit.
They might be. They really might be. Let me pull up game on paper right quick, and we'll see. Yeah, win probability was all over the place in this one. And this is another one of those where the run stuff rate on defense was just putrid. The third down success rate, not great. But, how crazy. Cal, with Jaden Ott back there, EPA per rush was negative 0.2. I found that very interesting. So, it's but everything looks exactly like you would think it should with USC. A bunch of green for their offense. Right?
I wonder if that's not. Some sacks. Because if I'm not mistaken, this is pulled off at ESPN, so they don't separate those out. Like it's not like the soccer adjusted yards are like those are just counted as runs. And so that's
rushing yards here is 235, and then for rushing yards it was just 235. So
interesting. Okay, yeah. So I don't know if those were pulling out or not on the negatives, but yeah, it's because on average your rushing plays are gonna be negative a lot of the time, just because rushing is less efficient than passing.
0 sacks for USC yesterday.
Dang, none at all.
They had 6 tackles for loss, but 0 sacks. So that makes sense.
Dang, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Boy, that is something. That is something. All right, we'll move ahead. We'll stay in the Pac-12, and this one certainly less interesting than what we just talked about. but Oregon 35, Utah 6, and let me tell you, I felt like the biggest fool yesterday watching this game, because Bo Nix took it to him right off the bat, took that crowd completely out of it, and my numbers had it. And that's what I was talking about betting. And I had a personal play on it at 6 before whoever Tunes or whoever gave it out. And it jumped up to like 7.5 at one point and then came back down. But then, we got to the BetUS show, and I was like, man, Bo Nix never played in Rice Eccles. Utah defense, this is going to be crazy. They can probably run the ball, and I talked myself out of giving it out. And it went exactly the way that, like, I kind of thought it would. They outgained Utah by 150 yards, which, there we go, right there. 248 passing yards, no interceptions for Nix. Like, he just very methodical. Just, it was crazy. Utah's defense got 0 sacks and only 1 tackle for loss. It was crazy. What'd you think about this one?
Yeah, I think where I and I gave this one out on Never Punt, Never Parlay, where I really thought what Utah's been good at this year is making the other team play their game, and they couldn't do it. And I think it's actually unique to how kind of Oregon's offense works, because Utah's defense is very disruptive in the sense of like, all right, we're not going to let you like get through your normal progressions. We're going to make this tough for you. We're really going to squeeze you. Oregon's like, hey, dude, we'll hand it off behind the line of scrimmage and take 5 yards if you let us. And so I think they've been really, really good about that. I mean, Bo Nix, almost underhand passing it. What is this? 2/3 of his attempts came, less than 10 yards downfield. You don't need those against this Utah team, especially with the offense being what it is. So Oregon just kind of refused to play Utah's game there. And Bo Nix was his normal, accurate, consistent self, which is a sentence that I think in like 2019 or 20 or whatever would have been like absolutely absurd to say and believe, but he's really matured. Not all 9 of his seasons in college football have really, built him up to have that experience and poise that we're seeing on the field now. But yeah, I think that was really the biggest thing for me is, again, took a loss there. It happens, whatever. But I mean, just continues to confirm the idea that Oregon's the best team in the Pac-12. Oregon's probably a playoff team here. The defense is every bit of what you'd expect. And again, not that Utah's offense is very potent, but more so that compared to what other teams were confused by, Oregon was not confused by anything on Saturday. So a dominant win. I think Oregon dropped a little too low after the Washington game. I said that in real time, but I think they're making up ground and it'll be fine. They obviously control their destiny here.
Yes, they do. They are awesome. LFG jumped in. He said Cal right now does not have the number 81 rated offense in the nation. Metrics are lagging behind. Much better play by the new QB1, Mendoza. And then let's see. That's not the one I wanted. Not CFB Butters. Let's see. Gary, I felt Utah offensive line was overrated and was struggle versus Dorless. I felt boring Utah offense couldn't trade scores with Oregon. Here we go. This is the one I was talking about. Don't be shocked if Arizona upsets Utah in late season pack play. I like the Utah front seven, but Arizona offensive line is Jack plus. Using the cover 3 stuff on here, I see.
Love that.
Look, Utah could get beat by anybody in this conference right now. Like, certainly.
Yeah.
But, we could talk about the Arizona game. We don't have a bunch of time to do that right now. But I do want to go back and rewatch Arizona and figure out where Oregon State went wrong. And this one, I don't have to rewatch Utah. I mean, I watched this thing. This was just a whipping. Like Oregon is just significantly better than this football team. So I don't know that you gain a whole lot from watching anybody play against Oregon right now. So just a guess, just a thought.
Yeah.
But you got more thoughts on this one before we swap over to the ACC?
No. Let's get over to ACC. I know we're turning through time as well, and I can sit here and pontificate. But again, Oregon took care of business. That's what you needed them to do, and this is very impressive.
You got that right. ACC. This is the most interesting result of the day, and that's because I think that we expected a bounce back. Because, you heard Mac Brown talking last week about, we're not going to schedule games on whatever, like homecoming or whatever week it was, fall break or something last week against it. That's why the crowd wasn't all that into it. Or at least that's what he was saying. North Carolina just didn't show up against Virginia. And then they came out against Georgia Tech, went up 14-0, gave up 24 points in the second quarter, came out in the third quarter, shut them out, and then in the fourth quarter gave up 22 points. That defense gave up 635 yards to Georgia Tech. Haynes King, 23 out of 30, 287 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. I don't have a clue what to even say here. Like, I knew this Georgia Tech offense has been in and out all season. This is the same team that lost to Boston College, right? But they've also had some really good performances this year. They're just kind of all over the place. Brent Key knows how to motivate his team when they are underdogs. They have done it for 2 straight years now, not just against North Carolina, but just everywhere. Like, anytime that they are a big underdog, they show up. This team is, awesome. Which, by the way, how many games have you seen where a team is 5 out of 5 in the red zone, the other's 4 out of 4? Like, it's just crazy. And like, if you just looked at North Carolina's offense, you would think, oh, they won this game handily. And the Gene Chizik defense rears its head. Something that I've been low on. Gary, I had the thought, and I don't know if I'm jinxing it by saying it in the world, but whatever. My North Carolina under is still on the table. You took under 7.5, right?
I thought it was 8 this year. I know I was oscillating between 8. But so it's still theoretically on the table. Because I think last year I took an under 7.5, and this year I took an under 8.5. But maybe that's backwards. But I was surprised. I don't know how many teams could be up 11 with 12 minutes left against Georgia Tech and then get a short field touchdown and then lose. Like, they were up 10 with 11 minutes left there, and they give up a big play touchdown. They drive down and they miss a field goal, which wouldn't have been decisive but could have changed things. Their defense can't get one stop they need, and then you've got your, number 1 pick, Heisman candidate, whatever, Drake May, former Heisman candidate maybe, Drake May driving down the field, and you got a receiver fumbling it and you lose the way. So like, even again, you need to stop at the end of the game, and you let Georgia Tech get a first down on 3rd and 1. You can't stop them on 3rd and 1. And just a really, really one of those games that you'd hope having Drake May and Tez Walker on offense could, you could just win this game, but the defense was dug such a hole they couldn't climb out of it.
Exactly. I mean, both teams, like North Carolina, 9 of 15 on 3rd down. Georgia Tech, 8 of 13. Georgia Tech was only 1 of 3 on 4th down. North Carolina never went for one because they really didn't have to. I mean, every quarter they were just doing their thing. They were put in a position where it didn't make sense to go for it on 4th down. Both teams had a turnover. Georgia Tech actually gave away points and still found a way to win. This was interesting. North Carolina got no sacks. They only had 2 tackles for loss here. This North Carolina schedule to close things out, it's kind of rough, right? You got Clemson, you got NC State. Who was the other one that I was talking about? I thought I had it pulled up. They got another one that's not easy. So this is I don't know if you can
hear it. I love it. They have Duke, Clemson, NC State. So some time to get right against Campbell. But if Riley Leonard's healthy, I don't know if that's a win. NC State's getting hot. Clemson, you're at a talent disadvantage.
Yep, it's possibility.
Possible.
It's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Let's rapid fire through some of these conferences, some of the things right quick, and I'll pull up the ESPN scoreboard and we'll finish things out with that. Write down my times. That way we can toss it in there. Let's see. We'll start with the SEC. We'll just roll through. Georgia beat Florida 43-20. It was impressive. Was there anything out of that game that surprised you or that was interesting at all? I mean, because it was, well, there we go. We're reloading.
It's got to be funny to be Carson Beck looks good. It's got to be funny to be like the best player in your district in high school and go get recruited by the SEC and then watch a friggin' little dude named Ladd like run past your ass and score a touchdown in a game. Like that's what I thought yesterday. I think Florida fans might not want to be mad at Billy Napier. I think he kind of understood like we're double-digit underdogs. So let's get weird and tried it. But the problem is, you're going to lose by double digits anyway. If that doesn't work, you lose by double digits, and someone can point at those specific decisions. So kind of rough, but it's fun.
I liked what he was doing. He was going for wins. Like if the only way that you can see a path for you winning the game is to try stuff like that, I have no problem with it. Because otherwise, I mean, what are you trying to do? Just keep it within, like, are you just trying to cover 14? Or are you trying to, like, I don't know that you're going to cover 14 anyway. So, yeah, this was, I had no problem with anything he did. Not in this ballgame.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, impressive, 33-7 over Vanderbilt. Nothing really to take away from that one. Ole Miss has got to A&M next week. Tennessee and Kentucky. Kentucky. I mean, just brutal. I thought, going into the fourth quarter, thought they had them right where they wanted them. Tennessee gets a touchdown drive late. Devin Leary finally showed up. 372 and 2 touchdowns. Like, he looked pretty good. Like, he looked healthier than he has basically the entire season. And I guess that makes sense coming off the bye week. But, man, that Kentucky defense giving up rushing yards left and right. Like, Tennessee is still Tennessee. They're still pretty good. So you agree with that?
I think they're over. Yeah, I think there's been a little bit of over dourness on their offense, and I think it's been fine. The thing that really stood out to me is Ray Davis averaging 2-point-something yards per carry. Only a long of 8. Tennessee's defense really bottled him up. And again, last season Tennessee's defense was aggressively bad, and this season they are actually just aggressive. So that was impressive to see them kind of say, "Kentucky, we know what you're going to do. We're going to take the Devin Leary can't beat us." And it was close, but it worked out for them.
Yeah, I agree. A&M 30-17 over South Carolina. Here was my takeaway from this game. What is A&M going to look like without Aniyah Smith? Because that's about the only thing that they had going for them, right? And while it looked great, Max Johnson was able to find him multiple ways, and he was awesome, like 118 yards receiving, but also he was the offense. Like, he was the jetpack, right? He's the one that made things go. That 42-yard touchdown reception was just a thing of beauty where he just broke people's ankles left and right. This was what I expected from A&M. Like, I thought they were going to cover the 14.5, and there was a bunch of steam on them late in the week that got out to like 17. But South Carolina was, what it was, Pate calls them wounded animal mode or whatever. But they were going on the road, and A&M coming off a bye, and that A&M team, they've got Ole Miss next week. They got LSU coming up late. I mean, I don't know what to make of A&M. You got any thoughts on this?
That's the SEC West, baby. That's part of it. Yeah, it seems like if you don't have the dudes to stop Smith and make them kind of beat you around that, it's going to be really hard to do. And I think we saw evidence of that. I don't know how many times I can say, like, South Carolina, I don't care if you get in a former 5-star, quarterback, whatever. They're uninterested in being good at the down and down business and moving the football. They want to rely on bullshit to win, and that's just not going to work consistently. So, congratulations, you have reaped what you sowed, South Carolina.
Yes, I mean, and
you're probably going to take you against Jacksonville State this weekend, but whatever.
Auburn beat Mississippi State 27-13. We don't even have to rehash that. State didn't score another touchdown until late in that ball game, or not their first touchdown until late. They were already down by 3 scores, so it didn't matter. That was a brutal.
Did you hear about potential bad blood with Freeze being a little blasé about trying to get Will Rogers to come over? That popped up. Somebody was talking about that yesterday in the timeline, and like that might be a little bit of what some murder ball was happening, is that there's a little bit of bad blood there because Freeze was calling around Will Rogers. Haven't verified that. Not breaking news. Just saw it from somebody yesterday.
That would make a lot of sense. I had not heard that. But man, that makes so much sense that somebody like Hugh Freeze would go after his former rival's quarterback right after the coach.
I can believe it.
Like, that's terrible. Like, that's unbelievable. Yeah, I say it's unbelievable, but I believe it. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll hear more about that as we go forward. We'll move to the Big Ten right quick. Ohio State 24-10. I took nothing away from this. This was exactly what I expected. A Luke Fickell team that knows Ohio State in and out, and Ohio State offense that has trouble moving the ball against air sometimes, even with Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, it's just bleh. So nothing from that one. Did you take anything away from that?
TreVeyon Henderson matters, I think, maybe. In the scheme of the running back discourse don't matter. It doesn't look like Ohio State has a guy who's sufficiently talented behind him. So, yeah, he was pretty good, even only with a long of 33, but still puts up 160 plus and takes a lot of pressure off the offense otherwise. So, yeah, I think that's pretty important. Remember the Braylon Allen year, man? Remember it was like Braylon Allen's 19, he's so good, he's doing all this, and it's just it's rough. It's rough to see that kind of roller coaster of a guy hit his peak and then really never hit the next level.
No, you got that right. You look at the box score like this, and it's TreVeyon Henderson, 162 yards and a touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr., 123 and 2 touchdowns. And, they only won 24-10. It's like, okay, that's kind of surprising for an Ohio State team. Like, you'd expect something different. Penn State, 33-24 over Indiana. Indiana had a chance to win this game.
Yeah.
Like, really legit had a chance to win this game. And that's the, Tom Allen kind of playing it close to the vest, playing not to lose with that field goal late. And, I mean, you get beat. You get beat doing stuff like that. So
I think in the grand scheme of things, if you're like an Indiana fan who's thinking long-term, you're probably happy that it's probably better that you didn't win this game. I know that's hard, but like if you're going to make decisions, you want to be able to make those decisions. You don't want to delay them on the back of Penn State, in a letdown spot after the Ohio State game. So I don't think Penn State looks like a top 10 team right now. I think that's fair to say over the last 2 weeks. They look a little bit rough, but good teams survive on their off days. So, Penn State at least.
You're right. Win your clunkers, right? Win the clunkers. Penn State has got Michigan in 2 weeks. Northwestern 33-27 over Maryland. Maryland started out 5-0. What's the schedule look like now? You lose to Illinois and Northwestern, and Penn State at Nebraska, Michigan at Rutgers. Are they going bowling?
That's really rough, man. I mean, that's I mean, best case scenario, you're looking at 2-5 down the stretch after you kind of beat up on some bad teams. That's rough. But I mean, this could be 0-7 down the stretch, very, very easily. Yeah, again with a dynamic quarterback, I just don't understand how you let Northwestern score 33 points there. I just don't get how you allow that to happen at all. Shout out to them for kind of righting the ship amidst a bad situation, but yeah, man, it's I would not. I have questions about what they're doing week to week in terms of like self scouting, looking at their last couple of games because Ohio State, like that game was closer than 37-17, so maybe that took a little wind out of their sails, but like. Illinois Northwestern losing close games to both of them? Absolutely not. With the talent on your roster, with where your development cycle is with Talia, you should be able to go win both of those games. And yeah, it's pretty disappointing.
Just turning the ball over in ridiculous spots. Like it was a brutal game. It was a brutal game for Maryland. It was great for Northwestern, who is now 4-4. And Northwestern, like I want to look at their schedule right quick. And we'll have to get out of here in about 5 minutes. We won't have to.
Yeah, Northwestern, Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue, Illinois. 6 is hard. 6 is hard.
It's definitely hard. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Anybody could beat Iowa. Anybody could. Right now, I think anybody could beat Wisconsin. Honestly, Purdue is. I mean, we saw what they look like against Nebraska yesterday, and Illinois. Illinois is a winnable game even on the road. So It's not crazy. I think they could hire David Braun. I think they could. The interim that's there right now, he took the handcuffs off of Mike Bajakian, the offensive coordinator there, and I think they've just kind of found ways to get some W's. Like I feel pretty good about Northwestern going forward if this is what they decide to run with. But I mean,
absolutely. And I think from a political economy standpoint, there's some. It went away pretty quickly because it was very, very obviously stupid. There was a little bit of like rallying around the former coach, and Braun having been there and taken over the interim gives you a lot of goodwill if they want to go forward with that. Although I will say, in the new college football, like you got to hire a coach, man. You can't just take a guy because he's around. I think that's not a long-term recipe for success. So they should at least do a search, but he might make the most sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Let's move over let's do something different. Let's do the Mountain West right quick. Air Force 30-13. Man, this was like Colorado State was there, and they just blew it. Like they just blew it. A lot of snow in this one. Did you get to watch this ball game, or at least some of it?
Yeah, great uniform matchup. Was a little weird that Colorado State was wearing like white and blue at home, and then Air Force came in and was wearing blue, but they looked cool. So at least there. Colorado State, man, that 4.5 has me a little bit nervous here down the stretch, but they're making strides, I think, and that's important. Like last year, we knew they didn't have it. And I think Norvell is in a good position. I think they're spending well to kind of move forward there. But I mean, very clearly, it was just like this is a game where with the snow, the edges were going to matter, and Air Force had the edges. No points for Colorado State in the second half. I think speaks a lot to hey, you can adjust against the air raid. You know what's happening. Obviously, the snow mattered and the weather there as well for the passing team. But not an awful performance by Colorado State, all things considered.
Boise 32-7, just destroyed Wyoming. Not super surprising, but this is the Boise team that we haven't seen. So they got George Talani back at running back, but Genty I think he went out injured in this game. So going forward, they still got Fresno, they still got Air Force. Still might end up with 6 losses on the season, and who knows what that'll mean for Andy Avalos. But it's kind of nice to see Boise do something like this against the Wyoming team that I swore was 2021 Northern Illinois.
Yeah, right. Well, and Madsen comes in for Boise and does a good job, slinging a little more downfield. We know that they said they wanted Taylor Green to run less, which I thought was silly. But if you have a guy who can pass it, that's certainly interesting. Yeah, Wyoming is definitely one of those like, all right, shoe's going to drop, guys. Whereas it looks like it kind of did here away from home against the team that's just a little better.
Yep. Hey, what's up? That's it. No, that's not Ryan. That's Parker. All right, the close to our show today.
That's great. I love it. It's a good forced segue. I think we're getting home over here too, so that works out well.
Parker, I can't thank you enough for joining and helping walk me through some of the stuff that sometimes I don't fully understand through just a fall Saturday. So
love the external processing, man. Happy to come on anytime. What's that link?
Follow Parker at Stats of War on Twitter. Of course, subscribe to the show, like the video, all that good stuff. And yeah, let's go and get out of here. I'll end this thing, and I will catch you later on, buddy.
Take it easy.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter at GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.